professional actors, you go in and just jump in and do it, best of your ability.
Can I say one thing? Please. To me, the great Stanley Kubrick was an actor's enemy. And I can point to movies that he's done, the worst performances.
Every day, I share another story from the Golden Age and the moments that shaped an unforgettable era. If you'd like to keep these memories alive with me, hit subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it means a lot. Thank you for being here. Now let's begin. Robert Duvall finally breaks his silence. And Hollywood can't believe what he just said. After 6 long decades, the 94-year-old legend confessed there were 4 people he couldn't stand, not even for a minute, across his entire career. Duvall, a man often seen as the gold standard of discipline, talent, and integrity, has always been Hollywood's quiet giant. Respected, admired, and known for his calm, no-drama persona. Yet deep down, those old grudges never truly faded. Behind that stoic, gentlemanly front, Duvall carried memories he tried to bury forever. But now, in an interview shaking the film world to its core, the Oscar-winning icon who helped define generations of cinema has finally spoken up, saying what he never dared to say before. He revealed the 4 actors he simply couldn't stand. "I've kept my mouth shut for decades," Duvall reportedly said, "but at this age, what am I waiting for? It's time to tell the truth." His words exploded through the industry like wildfire. Not just because of what he said, but who said it? Robert Duvall, the man everyone thought would take Hollywood's secrets to the grave. For Duvall to finally break his silence after more than half a century means these feuds ran deep enough to follow him into his 90s. Sources close to him claim these weren't just small disagreements. These clashes changed films, altered performances, and even rewrote Hollywood history. Can you imagine how different those legendary movies might have been if peace had ruled those sets? Now, with Duvall speaking out at last, Hollywood is on edge. Everyone's asking, who are these 4 names, and what truth has been hiding behind the smiles, red carpets, and fake award show friendships? But before the shocking list comes out, we have to understand why a man like Robert Duvall, known for privacy and restraint, finally decided to talk. Insiders say it wasn't bitterness that drove him. It was reflection. A moment of truth that hits late in life when legacy starts to matter more than reputation. One longtime associate, who preferred to stay anonymous, revealed he's been watching all these documentaries that rewrite history, showing harmony where there was tension and friendship where there was jealousy. That false storytelling reportedly ate away at him. The final straw came during a tribute to his career, a celebration meant to honor his greatness. Sitting quietly in the audience, Duvall watched clips from his most iconic scenes. Moments shared with actors he secretly despised. The crowd cheered, but Duvall sat there, stewing, as the narrator praised creative partnerships and lifelong respect. He later told his interviewer, "I sat there listening to all that revisionist nonsense about mutual respect and creative partnerships, while remembering how one of those people used to deliberately step on my lines to ruin takes, and another tried to get me fired from what became one of my signature roles. That was it. The moment the legend had enough." At 94, with an Oscar, countless nominations, and a name forever etched into film history, Duvall decided he had nothing left to protect. Hollywood's illusions no longer mattered. Truth did. He reportedly told friends he wanted the next generation of actors to see the reality behind the glamour. "These young actors deserve to know the truth," he said. "Even the greatest films aren't always born from harmony. Sometimes they come from jealousy, ego, and chaos behind the camera." And then came the bombshell that rocked Hollywood. The first name on Duvall's list, Dustin Hoffman. The credit thief who never stopped. And that's just the beginning. Dustin Hoffman once called Robert Duvall a friend, but that friendship turned out to be nothing like Duvall imagined. Back when they were both broke actors in New York, they shared a tiny apartment, splitting rent and chasing the same dream. "Dustin and I were struggling actors together in New York," Duvall recalled. "We were friends, or at least I thought we were." But as Duvall later realized, friendship meant something very different to Hoffman. In the early 1960s, their bond started strong, built on long nights rehearsing and cheering each other on, but soon, Duvall began to notice something strange. His own ideas showing up in Hoffman's auditions. "I'd worked for weeks on a particular interpretation for an audition," Duvall explained. "I'd practice it in our apartment. Then suddenly Dustin would get called for the same part, and he'd use my exact approach, sometimes word for word. When Hoffman landed those roles, he'd tell others that Duvall had inspired him. Duvall shot back sharply, "That's a fancy word for theft." Even as they rose to fame, The tension never really faded. During the making of True Grit in 1969, where Duvall played the outlaw Ned Pepper, Hoffman often called him asking for advice while preparing for Midnight Cowboy. I spent hours on those calls, helping him find Ratso Rizzo's voice, Duvall said. But when he later read an interview where Hoffman claimed he developed that iconic voice by studying homeless people in New York for months, Duvall realized his help had been erased completely. "Never once did he mention our conversations," he said with disbelief. The breaking point came in 1971 when both men were up for the lead in The French Connection. The role ultimately went to Gene Hackman, but Duvall never forgot what happened behind the scenes. "That was when I stopped taking his calls," he admitted. "I realized some people never stop taking from others. They just get better at pretending it's collaboration." Insiders later backed up Duvall's story. Sources claimed that during the casting process, Hoffman went beyond stealing ideas. He allegedly tried to sabotage Duvall's chances altogether. He reportedly told director William Friedkin that Duvall was difficult and uncooperative, using old theater stories as proof. Duvall said that this lie may have cost him a career-defining role. "That crossed a line," he said firmly, "from competition to pure sabotage." Years later, Duvall confronted Hoffman about it. "He denied it," Duvall recalled, "but I heard it directly from Friedkin himself." Despite everything, Duvall never went public. Not then. He kept his composure, shared stages with Hoffman, attended events, and even gave polite compliments about his work. That mask of professionalism fooled everyone, making this revelation even more explosive. No one in Hollywood suspected that a quiet hostility had simmered between two of the most respected actors of their generation. But as shocking as the Hoffman confession was, what came next blew the roof off. Duvall named a man once thought untouchable, a legend whose talent was almost mythic. The second name, Marlon Brando, the most destructive ego I ever encountered. Duvall didn't hold back for a second. He explained, "In Hollywood, great performances don't always come from great relationships. Sometimes they survive in spite of terrible ones." His tone was sharp, his honesty brutal. "That's the reality of this business nobody talks about," he said, dropping truth bombs one after another. When he finally said Brando's name out loud, even hardened insiders froze in disbelief. Marlon Brando. The Marlon Brando. The man the world calls one of the greatest actors ever. Duvall didn't deny Brando's brilliance. He was a genius, no question, he admitted. But he was also the most destructive ego I ever encountered in this business. Marlon Brando wasn't just unpredictable. He was a man who could wreck an entire production just to prove he had the power. His clashes with Robert Duvall became the stuff of legend on the chaotic set of The Chase in 1966. A movie mostly forgotten today, though the cast was pure Hollywood royalty. Marlon Brando, Robert Duvall, Jane Fonda, and Robert Redford. But behind the polished movie posters, a psychological war was raging that would forever change Duvall's view of acting, fame, and professional respect. Duvall revealed that Brando had a cruel habit. He'd change his performance every single take on purpose, just to make editing impossible. If he didn't like the director's approach, Duvall said, he'd intentionally ruin the coverage of other actors' scenes. Brando called it protecting the integrity of the performance. Duvall called it what it really was, professional sabotage. The tension kept building until everything exploded during one crucial monologue, one of Duvall's biggest moments in the entire film. Multiple crew members have since backed up his story. Brando would make faint, barely audible noises off camera while Duvall delivered his lines, just loud enough for the microphones to catch them. Take after take was ruined, until by the fifth one, Duvall snapped. "After the fifth ruined take, I confronted him," Duvall said. "And what happened next became a brutal Hollywood lesson he'd never forget." Brando just smiled, that famous smug smile, and said, "Maybe you should be stronger in your choices." Duvall paused, remembering the sting of that moment. "That was Marlon," he said. "He'd sabotage you, then frame it as your weakness." What a power move, and a cruel one. What makes this revelation so shocking is how completely it shatters the public image of their relationship. For decades, Duvall publicly praised Brando's artistry, calling him an inspiration, even while quietly carrying the bitterness of that experience. Years later, they would appear in the same cinematic universe again with The Godfather, though they never shared a single scene together. Back then, it seemed like coincidence. Now, it feels deliberate. "I learned more from watching Marlon than from anyone else," Duvall admitted. But what I learned wasn't just about acting. I learned how not to treat colleagues. I learned that genius doesn't excuse cruelty, that mix of admiration and disgust, respect for Brando's talent but deep disappointment in his ego, explained why Duvall kept quiet all those years. But just when Hollywood was still reeling from the Brando bombshell, Duvall dropped another name. And this one hit even closer to home. The third name on his list? James Caan, competitive to the point of malice. This one cut especially deep for Hollywood insiders because Duvall and Caan's chemistry in The Godfather was legendary. Caan's fiery Sonny Corleone and Duvall's cool, calculating Tom Hagen became one of the most realistic brotherly pairings ever filmed. Jimmy and I created one of the most believable brother relationships in film history, Duvall said, and we did it while barely speaking to each other off camera. That's acting, and tension, at its finest. Their problems started early, right from the first rehearsals. Both men were determined to stand out in an ensemble already filled with talent. Duvall, the quiet craftsman, approached every scene with precision. Caan, on the other hand, thrived on energy, sometimes too much energy. Jimmy was competitive to the point of malice, Duvall recalled. He deliberately tried to upstage everyone, especially me. Whenever Duvall had an important line, Caan would suddenly start doing something to steal the moment, tapping his fingers, playing with props, or making exaggerated expressions. Anything to pull focus and steal attention. That tension boiled over during the legendary family meeting scene when the Corleones debate whether to go to war. Between takes, what looked like brotherly heat on screen was actually pure rivalry off it. Hollywood had no idea that behind that incredible chemistry was a real-life competition that nearly derailed the magic we saw on screen. Tension hit its peak on The Godfather set when Robert Duvall was quietly discussing Tom Hagen's motivations with director Francis Ford Coppola, and James Caan suddenly barged in with a smirk. He tossed off some dismissive remark about overthinking glorified secretary roles, Duvall recalled. That was the moment I decided we would never be friends. From that day forward, he said, he made a choice. Tom Hagen would always watch Sonny carefully in every scene. That detail gave their dynamic real fire, because that's exactly what a calm, strategic man like Hagen would do around a hothead like Sonny. What shocks people most is how perfectly the two men hid their feud. For decades, Duvall and Caan fooled everyone, smiling together at reunions, laughing during interviews, and radiating brotherly warmth on red carpets. They played their parts off-screen just as well as on-screen. When we were promoting the film, we both understood what was at stake, Duvall explained. We weren't going to let personal issues damage something that important, so we smiled, told the right stories, and played our parts. That, he said, was real acting, the kind that doesn't win Oscars but earns respect. That quiet professionalism, that choice to protect the work despite deep resentment, says more about Duvall's character than any trophy ever could. It's also why these conflicts stayed hidden for so long, buried under decades of rehearsed affection, red carpets, and photo ops. But while his issues with Brando and Caan were mostly professional, Duvall's fourth revelation went much deeper. This one, he hinted, was personal, and it hit Hollywood right in its golden heart. The final name on Duvall's list? Robert Redford, the fraud behind the golden image. The very words made Hollywood gasp. Redford, the ultimate golden boy, the icon of elegance, intellect, and integrity. For decades, he had been untouchable, the symbol of art and activism, beloved by audiences and critics alike. But according to Duvall, that clean image was just a well-polished mask. Redford built the perfect public persona, Duvall said, the serious craftsman, the idealist, the man of principle. But the reality I experienced was something else entirely. Behind that charming smile and calm voice, Duvall claimed, was a cold opportunist. Someone who treated crew members like furniture and saw fellow actors as obstacles. Their feud started during the filming of The Natural in 1984. Duvall played Max Mercy, the cynical sports columnist, opposite Redford's heroic baseball legend, Roy Hobbs. What should have been an easy, respectful collaboration turned sour fast. Duvall began noticing Redford's behavior toward the crew. Entire teams kept waiting for hours while Redford took care of business. He'd keep everyone on standby, not because he was deep in character, Duvall recalled. He'd be on the phone handling deals while the whole crew just stood there waiting. That's not artistry, that's arrogance. As filming continued, the tension grew heavier. The energy on set was so sharp it seeped into their scenes, giving their confrontations that electric realism audiences loved. But no one at the time knew just how real it was. Duvall claimed that Redford's polished image of artistic integrity hid a far more self-serving agenda. He repeatedly pressured director Barry Levinson to trim my role, Duvall alleged. He argued that the scenes where Max Mercy challenged Roy Hobbs's myth weren't necessary, but Duvall saw right through it. It became clear he saw any strong presence opposite him as a threat, he said. This wasn't about serving the story, it was about making sure he dominated every frame. The irony of it all was brutal. Redford was playing a baseball hero whose reputation was being questioned by a journalist, while behind the scenes, he was trying to silence that same journalist's voice in the movie. What infuriated Duvall most wasn't just the ego, it was the hypocrisy. The gap between who he pretends to be and how he really acts is massive. Duvall reportedly told his interviewer, "The man preaches collaboration, but behind the scenes he's calculating every move to protect himself. He'd stand on stage at Sundance preaching about artistic purity," Duvall recalled sharply. Then he'd show up on set demanding final cut privileges and veto power over other actors' casting. The gap between Redford's public image and his real behavior left Duvall stunned. It was the ultimate case of Hollywood double standards, the saint in the spotlight, the tyrant behind the camera. But the moment that sealed it, the one Duvall would never forget, came during post-production on The Natural. He confronted Redford directly about his behind-the-scenes manipulation. What happened next, witnessed by several crew members, burned into Duvall's memory forever. Redford just looked at me and said, "You're a character actor, Bob. I'm a movie star. We're not playing by the same rules." That line hit Duvall like a punch to the chest. That moment crystallized everything, he said. The fraud behind the golden image. I never looked at him the same way again. That statement, perhaps more than any of the others, shook Hollywood to its core. From one Robert to another, it wasn't just a personal blow. It cracked open the entire myth of Hollywood's good guys. Those polished, smiling legends that everyone thought were untouchable suddenly looked human and flawed. The golden glow that had surrounded Redford for decades started to flicker, and the industry could no longer pretend not to see the cracks. In the days following Duvall's explosive interview, Hollywood has been in chaos, shock, denial, whispered confirmations, even quiet admissions have begun surfacing. Representatives for Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford, the only living actors Duvall mentioned by name, released carefully worded statements expressing surprise at his comments while insisting on their deep respect for his legacy. The responses felt polite, maybe too polite. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, insiders began backing Duvall's story. Crew members from The Natural have shared matching accounts of Redford's controlling behavior on set. A former assistant director from The Godfather confirmed the obvious tension between Duvall and James Caan during filming. Even Francis Ford Coppola, when asked, gave a telling response. "The chemistry you see on screen sometimes comes from very complicated personal dynamics behind the camera," he said. "That was as close to confirmation as Hollywood ever gives." And the ripples didn't stop there. According to sources close to Duvall, several big-name actors have privately reached out to thank him. Finally, someone said what so many have felt but never dared to say out loud. "He spoke for a lot of us," one actor reportedly told a friend. The message was clear. Duvall's courage had opened a door. As for Duvall himself, he seems lighter now. Not bitter, but free. After decades of keeping quiet, he's not lashing out, just setting the record straight. In a brief follow-up statement, he explained, "My goal was never to hurt anyone's legacy, but to correct a version of history that's been polished into fiction." He added, "I've given 60 years to this industry and have always treated it with respect. Part of that respect means being honest about its realities, both good and bad." Duvall stressed that these weren't small disagreements or one-time arguments. They were long-term patterns that affected productions, careers, and people's lives. "These truths deserve to be part of the record," he said firmly. "Not just the shiny version we all agreed to pretend was real." As the entertainment world scrambles to process these bombshells, one question now hangs in the air like smoke over Hollywood Boulevard. Does Robert Duvall have more to reveal? His final words in that interview were haunting and cryptic. Those four stood out, but they weren't alone. And just like that, the legend left the room, leaving Hollywood to face its reflection. Maybe after all these years, it's finally time for the myths to fall and the truth to take the stage. Drop your thoughts in the comments below, Hit that like button if you felt something real, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories.